We have a mushroom farmer that forages for us, and he's driving in mushrooms to us weekly from Arizona. So, we really want to embellish that story and create more lifelines and unveil the beauty of that small farmer.
This is Taste. I'm your host, Matt Rothbard. Angelo Sosa is one of the most talented chefs I know, and he's currently the chef at the new Tia Carmen and Caramocha at the Hyatt Regency Indian Wells Resort and Spa. Angelo was also the runner-up on Top Chef and has worked with some of the biggest names in the game, including John George, Alain Ducasse, Steven Starr, and Morimoto. On this episode, we talk about his move to the Greater Palm Springs area and the exciting high desert cuisine he's serving. Also on the show, I speak about my recent visit to Palm Springs and dig into the region's restaurants, both established and brand new. Palm Springs is such an underrated food town, and I think I have some great picks in my conversation with Eliza. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Angelo Sosa, welcome back to This Is Taste. It's great to talk to you.
It was so amazing seeing you last week, and you're one of my favorite people to talk to. You just understand food, and you have such an interesting perspective, and I feel like I'm always just learning and listening. I love listening to you, so thank you for having me.
Well, Angelo, it's absolutely mutual. I love, of course, your food, and I was in Phoenix last December, and we had a great chat about your restaurant there. But really, you're, I think, one of our country's most talented and creative chefs, and you always are so centered around your staff. And I got to meet many of them, and I feel you have this compelling. You teach your staff not just about food, but about life. And I don't know, this is a mutual respect club. I just love seeing you in your space.
Thank you. It's pretty powerful because, I know we're going to talk about food, but food is the connection to the body, right? When I say the body, it's the community, the team, right? So when the team is connected, I believe the frequency of the food really that's our language, right? So when we're connected, you're able to taste that frequency, right?
Oh my God, of course. And you can taste when a staff is down, when a staff is not in sync, and when the body is not connecting to the food in the physical sense. That's a well said, man. Well, so let's get into it. And I love Palm Springs. I love the area. I've been going there for a couple of decades, and it's really cool that you decided to open in Indian Wells, which is a community north of Palm Springs. And it's really close, and you fly into Palm Springs, you're there in a moment. But what excited you about opening up a restaurant in the Coachella Valley?
Well, I think first and foremost, I'm such a visual person, right? Like, I don't know many places, and I've traveled the world. I don't know many places that you could see snow-capped mountains, you could see palm trees, and, a variance of temperatures of 20 to 30 degrees, less than 30 minutes away. And I think, referring to like Idlewild, right? Or maybe it's a little bit longer than that. I just think it's just a stunning, first of all, visually it's stunning, right? And for me, what excites me is that there, and you've been in the Valley longer than I think you said over 20 plus years, right? So I'm new to the Valley, and I feel like I'm discovering it, and there's amazing restaurants out there, and I want to be part of that story, and I want to unveil more of the beauty of the Valley. So that really, really, we take that, when I say seriously, we want to spearhead that and unveil, a little bit more, elevated dining in the Valley. So that excites us, and that gets us fired up.
I love that you say elevated, because it absolutely is true. And listeners, you should stick around, and at the end of this episode, Eliza and I chit chat about my thoughts on some of the new restaurants in Palm Springs and around the Valley, and why I love visiting so much. And back to you, Angelo. Let me ask you, when you're researching your menu at Tia Carmen, and you're thinking about how you're going to build your own restaurant in this area that has such cool agriculture and really a diversity that's underrated, frankly. Local farms. What were you doing to build this menu?
So we have two beautiful restaurants. One is Caramucha, which is more of a global tapas in a casual setting. And then we have Tia Carmen, which is a little bit more elevated dining that focuses really on the land, right? So we want to, embellish and uncover the land and uncover, stories and build relationships. So I almost look at it as, we want to, our number one goal is to promote the small farmer, right? The small farmer that doesn't respond to emails, that doesn't pick up the phone because they're out there, 4 a.m., 5 a.m., tilling the garden and harvesting. So that's really what we're in search for, is to be a voice, to be a lifeline to the valley, to these farmers, right? So we classify this valley, part of the Southwest, right? What I will say is this, is that, we use local farmers such as Aziz Farms, in Thermal, not about 45 minutes from us. We use some local, small little micro farmers that grow our flowers and our microgreens, right? So now that we opened the restaurant in the dead heat, I think it was 120 degrees and it was very arid and dry. So what we're really excited about is this season, right? The cooler weather is now, now the product is really flourishing. So we're excited to embrace not only the community, but dive deeper into the farmers and see the products that they have. So that's super exciting to us. A lot of our produce we do get from currently now from Santa Monica farmers markets. Um, and we also, use some farms in Arizona as well, right? Because that is that is the Southwest, right? So we're using, native beans from the Pima tribe, and we're working with Ramona Farms for her heritage corn. We have a mushroom farmer that forages for us, and he's driving in mushrooms to us weekly from Arizona. So, we really want to embellish that story and create more lifelines and unveil the beauty of that small farmer.
Wow, I had never heard of many of those farms, and I definitely knew they were there. And we hear about the date farms, of course, and the nut farms as well, but we don't hear about the mushroom foraging. But the geodiversity and the agriculture there is amazing. Are there any producers of products that you're clued in on? Any cheeses or anything like that?
Yeah, you know what, Matt? What was pretty amazing is that as the restaurant's been, I think we're 3 months into our infancy. Um, I had a guest come last week, and she's like, she had her meal, and she wanted to talk to myself and Chef Danielle, and she's just like, I would love to introduce you to not only the local farmers, though some of the local tribes. So we're like, wow. So I think as we start evolving and the restaurant's growing to its maturity, we're going to meet more people that are all honestly just going to be advocating for us as well in introducing us. So what I will say is, we've only, we're on the surface of our discovery, and we're going to dive super deep over this next season. So
It is early days, and I totally recognize that you're really finding your way there in terms of this new season. And I want to focus on Tia Carmen. The menu is so deeply modern and adventurous, and I just love. I mean, you did something that is like kind of. I would say bananas, pun intended, to put it on the menu. You paired fluke with banana. That is not easy, but I will say what a delicious bite, and it shows, Angela, your creativity, and you're really pushing things out in the desert. And I really hope our listeners can come out and try your food.
yeah, I mean, I would just be interesting to hear. I want to answer the question, but I would love to hear what was your experience when you had that bite, right?
Yeah, I mean, I thought first off, banana is impossible to pair with savory. It's traditionally one of the most difficult fruits to even cook with because it has such aversion in our public. There's many people who just do not like bananas, but of course we know. And I had Rene Redzepi on talking about his show Omnivore, and they did a whole episode on bananas. This is one of the world's great foods, and to use it in a culinary sense, I thought that raw seafood and banana works. It's very tropical. It reminds me of Southeast Asia. It reminds me of Mexico. And I'm getting a lot of that with that bite, but I love the creativity there. So that's my take. But what are you thinking about this dish?
Well, I think I love what you're saying. First of all, because that's really the impetus of the food in itself. And when you talk about deeply modern, my interpretation of the word modern is extremely deep, right? Like I've had a blessed not only career, but I've been blessed to travel the world, right? And for Tia Carmen, we spent time in Oaxaca, we spent time in Mexico City, we spent time in Guadalajara. We really traveled the Southwest along with California, New Mexico, parts of Colorado, right? So, what we do, and that word modern is, I just love it because we're in a day and age of what's relevant is many cultures are relevant and many cultural techniques are relevant and many cultural, traditions are relevant. So when I think of banana, right, I don't look at it in the context of that it's sweet, though the sweetness is important for this specific dish to put it into balance and combat the spicy notes of the leche de, or the acidic notes and the spicy notes of the leche de tigre. But we want that banana for the fat, for its unctuousness and its richness. Just so, again, I might have mentioned this at the restaurant, but think of guacamole or avocado, right? It's so fat, it's so creamy. So now we wanted to be a little bit uniquely different, right? And really take that beautiful lean fluke, okay, which is stunning and coming from the Sea of Cortez, which the waters are so rambunctious and so intense that the flavor of the fish is so clean. And then we have that with the banana, that it's just that extra fat, right? And with the leche de tigre, you're getting those acidic notes, and then you're getting the spice. But even the leche de tigre has this beautiful viscosity that just complements this dish. So we have fun with that word modernization, right? We really want to pay homage to the past, but I also believe that the past evolves to the present and to the future.
Another dish that really stuck out was a plant-based mushroom menudo, which is really, I mean, such a clean broth. It's one of my favorite broths in years, and it's so deeply flavorful and done with such care. I love that it's plant-based. You're obviously opening up your menu to many. What inspired this dish?
Yeah. So when we talk about, I mean, first and foremost, this dish is just, it's I'm exercising, due to health reasons and full transparency, from high cholesterol to high blood pressure to pre-diabetics. Just my schedule is erratic and not consistent. So I need to be more mindful about my wellness, right? So, having a vegan, and there's many people like that, right? And we really want to pay homage to that. When you talk about grapes and the terrain and the terroir, we want to talk about, when we talk about the Southwest, we want to pay homage and reverence to the terrain, to the beautiful microclimates of the Southwest. So mushrooms, we have this incredible forager from his name is Brian, and he has a company called Haifa Foods, and he forages mushrooms for us. So he foraged these incredible cauliflower mushrooms. And what's fun about the concept of menudo typically is tripe, right, which is the stomach of the cow. But when I was at the farmer's market and saw this ingredient, I was reminded by the texture, right, and how fun would it be for vegans to feel like they're equally as important, which they are, right? And we can have fun with food, and we don't need to be quote unquote so serious, right? So it's a whimsical interpretation of a menudo. And it's super healthy, and there's so many, health benefits to that. So that's something that we're very conscious of because, we have to protect the earth. And we need for me as a chef, food is my voice, food is my language, food is what connects me to people like you and to others. And we need to protect the earth and be mindful of what we're because the earth provides all that we need, right?
Switching gears, probably my favorite bite was your lamb barbacoa, which I think is becoming a bit of a signature for you. You're doing it in a way that pushes really the boundaries of a lamb over coals, and you're wrapping this beautiful lamb in a perilla leaf. You've got culantro, pickled onions, some pineapple, and a little dollop of caviar for a little luxury, and of course, Palm Springs it's a vacation place. You want to ball out sometimes. Why not add some caviar? This dish takes me back. I remember perilla uni and caviar was a dish, maybe with raw beef that was done in New York, maybe a decade or so ago. A Bourdain favorite, and it reminded me of that dish. But I love what you're doing there.
I mean, traditional lamb barbacoa, one of the best barbacoas I've ever had was in Mexico City. So the inspiration came from a dish that I had where they take the whole lamb, they wrap it in the maguey leaves. All they do is season it with salt. And then when it's unveiled at the table, you release these beautiful charred maguey leaves and you get that perfume of this fatty lamb. And it's just literally like just butter just melting and dripping all over your palms and your hands and your mouth. So, you know, so Chef Daniel and I are amazing chef de cuisine that had previously worked for Robuchon and Jose Andres. This is a great dish, as well as the fluke of where our worlds have come together through pure connection and love for food. So we took the concept of a barbacoa, we roasted in banana leaf and get those beautiful perfume and aromatics of the banana leaf. We serve it with the perilla leaves, and this is where kind of my Asian display and Asian love comes, almost of a take of like a bossam, right? So you have the pork and you eat that with all the accoutrements, the herbs, perilla leaves. So we wanted this dish to be lighter versus serving it with tortillas. So we use the perilla leaves and then that grilled pineapple, right? The acidity, but that deep char just cleanses the richness of the lamb, and the culantro just allows this dish to just dance and pop. And then the caviar adds that beautiful savory note and that the salinity. And it just goes back to our mantras of, what we call the Trinity. Each dish has its own Trinity, whether that's sweet, sour, salty, or if it's earthy, bitter, umami. We really want to focus on a core Trinity. So this dish definitely does that for us.
Yeah, it's really really cool to see that, and this leads to my next question. In a hotel, in a resort, and I mean, what impresses me with your career is you're operating these restaurants in Phoenix and in Palm Springs, and I imagine you have other plans, but you're doing something that is difficult. You could be very well doing like typical, really like well done resort food. You could have had a club sandwich, you could have had burgers and steaks, things that we expect in the resort setting, but you're not. You're really you're pushing boundaries, as I said before. And I guess it's challenging because you've got people rolling up from a conference or just for vacation, and you're offering these menus that are challenging in the best way possible, accessible as well, in that you're offering these global flavors. But I just want to ask you, this tension between pushing boundaries in a resort setting, that must be difficult.
Yep, I think that's a brilliant question, and I'll answer it this way: is so this is what's amazing about this opportunity is we have two restaurants. Run Carnucha, which in fact was my Tia's nickname because she was just this vivacious, loving woman who she wanted mucho and mucha. She wanted more love, more drinking, more happiness, right? So that restaurant covers the gamut because it's casual. We have lamb sliders, we have mussels, we have deviled eggs, we have a hamburger, we have a burrata salad, we have a takeoff of a Mediterranean salad. So we feel that that restaurant covers the gamut of the guest. There's no age restraints, there's no right. So and it covers every palate. So for Tia Carmen is I really wanted to have, I looked at it and had discernment of what's going on in the valley, right? And what's the real opportunity here, and how do we be singular in our voice, and how do we speak up and speak out and really expose the valley, or more importantly unveil the valley. And that's where we have, for example, the yam dish with our 24-month age mole negro with the tempari beans. Like, it might look very modern, but when you eat it, it's approachable. And our chicken guisado, it's a stew, but it's served in a Japanese donabe. But when you look at it, it's very homey, right? The mushroom menudo, when you look at it, it looks homey again. When you taste it, it's just pure in these flavors. So for us, it's the dichotomy of the high, the low, right? The high, the low, and really kind of that juxtaposition. And the opportunity here is to, again, to go after what I believe is the opportunity. And I'm not sure, and you might know better than I, there's not many restaurants in the valley, and I humbly say this, that, that take this approach. And for us, we really want to be, at the forefront of showcasing this beautiful region.
Yeah, you're correct. I've been going for a while, and I think the cuisine has really vastly improved over the past decade, and it's tremendous to see the growth. But there isn't a lot like what you're doing, and it's a huge area. And of course, we're entering the busy tourist season in the fall, winter, into the spring festivals and the music festivals. No, you're not seeing this, and that's why you should head out and check out the food. That's why we're talking. I mean, I'm just excited by what you're doing there, and I'm gonna imagine this is early days, but you probably have had some pretty surprised visitors in a good way.
Yeah, you know what it is Matt. I think it's when I say that it's simple, it's never simple, and it doesn't need to be simple, right? But one thing we do is we always need to be listening, and we always need to be honoring, the vision, right? And I think when I say at the end of the day, it's about paying reverence to the guest and offering an environment that they feel comfortable in. And hey, do we have to pivot and make, be a little bit more strategical of how we name things so it's not so intimidating? 100% we do, right? But at the end of the day, you're welcomed into this beautiful atmosphere, greeted hand over to heart. And we literally preach this in our pre-shifts is we have to look at the guests with loving eyes, right? We have to look at each other with loving eyes, right? We have to, treat the guests with an open heart. And that's really at the end of the day, we're offering hospitality. So that's really at the end of the day what this all comes to is this is another form of hospitality. It might look differently, it might feel differently, but at the end of the day, we want to inspire people, and we want to indoctrinate people to advocate for what we're doing. So we've been very excited. We have so many guests already. We have a lot of local following already. We have this gentleman. I think he's been in close to 20 times. His name is Will. I won't reveal his last name, but we just get back to the basics and we formulate real relationships. Hey, you want to come in? Just text me. Like, I want to make sure you're cared for because you're caring for us. So it's one hand feeds the other, and that's what's exciting about this relationship is we're not in this massive conglomerate of a metropolitan city, that we're able to formulate really deep relationships where we look out for each other. And that's what a community is, and that's what these restaurants mean to us.
I love to hear that you have some regulars already. Yeah, this is really cool to hear. I have to ask you about Top Chef. You were a very memorable character and contestant long ago, and you've been on subsequent series. Do you keep up with the current batch of contestants? You watch it. And second question is, are you doing some TV yourself? Are you getting back in?
I haven't put on the old Top Chef show in probably a decade. I will say this: um, Rashika, who was in San Francisco, I believe she moved to New York City. I might be pronouncing the name wrong. A dear friend. I was rooting for her. I didn't watch any of her episodes. I just know her as a human being and her talent, and bringing Indian cuisine and her culture to the forefront. So, regardless of what the results were, I was rooting for her.
Are you getting back into TV though, or are you just busy head down being a chef?
You know what, Matt? It is one thing I'm learning, and I'm going to be 50 this year. One thing I'm learning is I want it to be. I'm not going to force it. I want it to be at the right time, because what I have to say and what I want to say, I believe, is important. And I've gone through the gamut of life, as many of us have. And if I could impart any knowledge, any perspective that could support anybody's growth, I'm all game for that. So I just want it to be the right platform for me, and I want it to be a very powerful platform.
On This Is Taste, we ask guests about their discerning taste. So to close this interview, here's a little rapid fire. Fast and Furious taste check. Angela, are you ready?
Go right ahead.
The best fruit.
Guava.
Ooh, what's fresh guava like to you? What's it taste?
Ooh, it reminds me of my childhood in Dominican Republic up in the mountains. We would literally just, as we're barefooted and our feet are being annihilated by red ants, you just grab the beautiful guava and just eat it. It's fragrant, it's floral, and it's just sweet.
I love that. The worst vegetable.
I appreciate it. I don't get it. A crone. I just don't get it.
What is a crone?
I hope. Yeah, it looks like a. It looks like. Oh my god, what does it look like?
Wow, you're like stumping me on this one.
It's a little. It looks like a spiral. A small little beige, like little spiral vegetable.
This is a deep cut here. I'm impressed.
It's not. I will say. I would say fiddlehead fern. I think the aroma is kind of off putting. I think it looks pretty cool, but I think it's a little off putting.
One of the truly I would say weirdly hyped vegetables on the East Coast in the early spring that looks cool but tastes like dirt to me. Sorry.
Is fern?
Yeah, fiddleheads. Yeah, I can't handle them either. All right, the best dessert.
Oh, woo. Okay. Well, I'm gonna have to say this. I think our flan at the restaurant, our beautiful tequila flan with the Spanish manchego grated over, is really just triumphant.
Yeah, it's an incredible tableside magic trick where you're getting your flan and it's beautiful on its own, but then your server is graciously showering it with this salty, though mild, cheese. And talk about richness. What a rich dish, but I love it. You do it at all your restaurants, your Tia Carmen, your two of them, and I love that dish. You have three Tia Carmen, is that right?
We have two. Yep.
A restaurant you wish could come back from the dead.
I'm gonna go back. I'm wondering if you remember this restaurant, Sumile in New York
Oh,
City.
yes, yes.
I can't think of his last name. I know his first name, Josh. Um,
DeCellis?
yes,
Josh DeCellis, yeah.
I thought that restaurant was pure brilliance.
Sumile was absolutely one of the, I would say, early 2000s is probably when that was really popping. Great call. I love that you dug deep for that answer.
Thank you. That took
It's
a
a
bit
good
of work.
one. Your favorite city outside America to visit for food?
Favorite city? I would say hands down, the hottest city right now. I think that I've traveled to is Mexico City right now.
Great call. Last one, your favorite sandwich?
I'm going to get specific here. So my background with Asian food, right? I had a banh mi in Hue in Vietnam. It was, of course I went to the, Anthony Bourdain's and Andrew Zimmerman's, picks and all that. This was a little stall, across the street from a nightclub. This lady was just chilling out, barefooted, and we're recommended to go have this banh mi there. She took the beautiful warm bread, took that out of this toaster, spread it with this beautiful butter. It was almost like yellow, if not orangish. Put some pork grease on it, put some pork offals on it. She didn't even stop there. Then she put the normal accoutrements of the jalapeno, she even put bean sprouts, carrots, and then she put candied squid. It was purely dynamic and it was purely magical.
I love that. I love Central Coast Vietnam. That's an incredible spot. Hue. And wow, what a pick. I love the banh mi we drafted sandwiches one time here on the show, and that was the number one pick right there. We drafted the banh mi as the number one sandwich, which I think is a great call. I'm so hungry right now after hearing that. Angelo Sosa, thank you so much for joining This Is Taste.
All right, Matt. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Hey, Matt, how's it going?
Eliza, it's great. I'm actually just back from a California vacation.
Yeah, we have to talk about California, my home state, except for you were in Palm Springs, right?
I've mentioned it before, and we're going to keep talking about Palm Springs because it is truly one of my favorite cities in America. I've been there like 20 times, and it's like better than ever. What do you think about Palm Springs as a native LA
Well,
resident?
this is a setup because you already know that I don't like Palm Springs.
I know.
Every time you mention it, I have this gut reaction, which maybe I'm just being your foil at this point. I don't like the grass.
Oh, the fake AstroTurf that sometimes
It just
finds
feels
itself in?
like Palm Springs is trying to pretend that it's not in the desert, and there are all the golf courses Sorry, this
Yeah.
is not even about food. The
No,
golf
but
courses that water their lawns are specifically what I take issue with.
well, let's start with your perception and your take, which I think is valid for you, but I'm going to hopefully convince you otherwise because I've always enjoyed Palm Springs for the unique mid-century architecture, the collision of cuisines from Asia, from Mexico, from like the California high desert. And I've been going for years, but this was a trip I wanted to really take a close look at a couple newer places. And honestly, I think we think about Coachella and we think about the music festivals in the spring as a big Palm Springs highlight. But really, I think the best time to go to Palm Springs is between like the fall into the spring. So the season is just starting now, but it's a great place to go in November, December, January, February. But the food is excellent. Excellent.
Yeah, I want to hear about where you go because despite, or maybe because of my strong stance, I haven't actually eaten in Palm Springs that much.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
I'm more of a high desert, Yucca Valley, Joshua Tree, obviously kind of girl. But
I feel that.
If you were going to try to convince me to like Palm Springs, where would you take me?
Definitely. Well, I think Palm Springs is cool. They do direct flights from New York starting in the winter. And I think... for me, a place to start is Bar Cecil, which I have been to a couple times now. The first time I didn't quite get it. I didn't understand what was going on there, but now my valiant return, it's definitely one of my favorite restaurants on the West Coast. And I'll give you a little info. Richard Chrisman and Jeff Bach are the guys behind it. They're partners, and they're behind Sparrow's Lodge and Holiday House. And this restaurant has an incredible art collection, and the vibes are real. I mean, there's Tyson Knight, sketches of Diane Vreeland and Grace Coddington, and there's lots of Warhols. There's some Calders hanging out, but really it's a private collection of Richard and Jeff, and that really sets the mood that this place is like a living room. And when you go to a restaurant in Palm Springs, you're there for a couple of reasons. One is to obviously party. It's like a great place to go and celebrate a wedding, a bachelor party, bachelorette party, retirement party, all ages. But and it can be a little loud and clubby. But when you go to Bar Cecil, it's the opposite. It's very cozy, and the staff is great. What I also like about the place is that the food is both imaginative and familiar. And you're gonna get steak frite, but you're gonna get it with a fillet, and it's gonna be have a little caviar on the side, likely. They do a $50 martini, which it's funny if you order it 10 times, you get your name on the wall, which I don't know.
How many names are on the wall?
There are probably like 50 to 100 names on the wall. It's giving a lot of Ground Round, which is a compliment because Ground Round is like an iconic family restaurant chain that does gimmicky stuff like that. But you get like a little egg with caviar with the $50 martini. It's like they're giving that mid-century entertaining vibe. They're serving warm chocolate chip cookies at the end. There's a shrimp cocktail. There's monkey bread sweetened with dates. I think it's just one of those places. It's like steakhouse meets backyard dinner party, and great wine list. And then they have like photos of Thomas Keller and Marco Pierre White in the kitchen. And I think Thomas Keller inspires this place. That's my read. They serve his caviar literally, but they also just has this like California excellence in hospitality that TK is so known for. I just want to keep going back, and I think the line in Bar Cecil is that it's an impossible reservation, and it's true. It's really hard to book sometimes. It's on Open Table. You can go 30 days in advance, but the tip here is just go and get your name on the list. They have amazing staff. Be nice to the staff. And honestly, they're, I believe, building a wine bar next door. It seems like they're like going to be under construction soon. So they'll be like a nice place to hang. But Bar Cecil is probably my favorite Palm Springs restaurant right now, but it's always changing.
I mean, I do want to get dressed up fancy and go now, even if I'm not going to have the $50 martini.
It's a really great place to, if you're going to have that one meal where you're going to like be hanging out and wearing like a suit or wearing something that you feel is a little more like splashy. You're going to splash out at Bar Cecil a little bit. But, I wanted to also try my friend Angelo Sosa, who you just heard in the interview. I wanted to try his restaurant, Tia Carmen, at the Grand Hyatt Indian Wells. And I was so impressed. I've had his Angelo's food for over probably 15 years, and he's one of our more, I would say, adventurous chefs around. His restaurant in Phoenix blew me away last December, and he's really continuing the tradition at Tia Carmen. And he is doing like lamb barbacoa with wrapped in a perilla leaf and with culantro, pickled onions, pineapple, and caviar. It's like the incredible, right? Like your face showed it like, wow, that really works. Well, it does. Because
You got me until the caviar, but maybe that's the theme of Palm Springs.
a little bit of that. I think that's true. I think like luxury is definitely part of the vibe. Pineapple is so fresh. And I think that's an example of the way Angelo thinks about this food is inspired by his aunt. And so he blends these cultures and this also obviously with a perilla leaf hints at Southeast Asia, a place that he's been very interested in studying and traveling to. But back to his other roots, his Latin roots, is the mushroom menudo, which was a plant-based menudo with which it feels like maybe like it's not like it doesn't shout from the mountaintop like come have mushroom menudo at my restaurant, it's the must-eat dish. But honestly, Liza, this broth was so clean and it was so delicious to have a plant-based option amongst all the steakhouses in Indian Wells and Palm Desert, in a place that's like kind of not Palm Springs. It's a little bit further out, but there's some like nice pockets there. So I really enjoyed those two dishes, and really Tia Carmen is really one of the new additions to this like growing scene of like out of town chefs opening in Palm Springs and doing ambitious work. I know Richard Blaze has opened something, I haven't been, but that's interesting, and I think more and more chefs are going to move to Palm Springs because I think it's a really, obviously with the fall and winter and spring festivals, it's a place that has a lot of tourism. It's built for tourism, but there's also like people from LA go there all the time. I know a lot of LA folks who like to go there on a whim, and the food is great.
Yeah, I really want to know if you had a date shake while you were there.
Not this trip. I typically like to hit Shields up once every 3 trips, and that's the date farm out in Indio. And have you been to Shields?
I haven't. I, normally drive from LA out to the Palm Desert and the High Desert, and then I stop at Hadley's, which is kind of like the old school, like roadside place to go. But I guess if you're flying directly in, like maybe you would have to go out of your way a little more.
It's a little bit of out of the way to get to Indio. Indio has some incredible taquerias as well that I've hit up over the years. I was there also to check out the new Thompson Hotel, which is right in the heart of downtown Palm Springs and North Palm Canyon. And, Thompson is a brand that has like, a certain reputation for being, like a little bit more, I would call it like a little bit more of the luxury end of the coin, but also like kind of fun and party vibes. It's not like quiet and like you're having like massages and having spa days. You're having like more like the pool is playing hot in here, and I'm okay with that, which is a true story. But I really like this hotel. It's brand new. I think that they're building a second tower. But I was there to check out Lola Rose, which is their new restaurant from a really talented young chef, Quentin Garcia. And Quentin is doing kind of like meze style shared plates, and he's doing really nice kebabs and seafood as well. So I really liked that. I liked staying at Thompson. I think that's a brand that we can trust, and they've really. I was talking to some locals, and they're like, they've been building this property for like 15 years, and it's finally open. So we were like hanging out in the lobby, and there's like a lot of locals like checking it out. But I think that's gonna be one of the hotels that is making waves there.
Well, I love any hotel that's playing hot in here. Where else did you hit up while you were there?
Let's take a little like food break and talk about the architecture, which is something that I've talked about on the show. I can't say enough about visiting Palm Springs to check out these cool houses that were built in the 50s as a place for Los Angeles Hollywood folks, the folks in the industry, to kind of get away from town and not have to deal with, like paparazzi, frankly, and deal with like all the attention. And the reason Palm Springs works is that the houses are built on grids and all houses have to be one story. So backyards are absolutely private. So these houses were built using like the international style and some of the architecture that we consider mid-century, in some of it being modular and prefabrication and built out in the desert through those means. So built very quickly, but the backyards are private oases. So it's beautiful to like walk through them. And one cool thing that I highly recommend is catching an architecture tour, Modern Palm Springs Tours, the legend Michael Stern. And if you know anything about Palm Springs architecture, Michael has written several books about it. And I've had tours from Michael in the past, and I really enjoy what he has to say about the changes happening in Palm Springs. He's quite the character. But we were able to finally make it to the Frey House, Albert Frey's kind of iconic masterwork that's just above the museum property in downtown Palm Springs. It's a very small house. It's under 1,000 square feet, and it's really a legendary mid-century house that uses a lot of natural materials. He really wanted it to integrate with the desert. There's actually a rock in the living room that's built into this house.
So cool.
It's really cool, and really you can like see Bob Hope's house from there, which is a legendary space that Leonardo DiCaprio owns now. But it's these smaller spaces that I think are more special than the gargantuan ones. But Michael will show you both, and I highly recommend checking out Modern Palm Springs Tours or any of the architecture tours that they offer. You got to go on one, Eliza. You got to go on one.
Yeah, architecture tours are one of my favorite things to do when I'm visiting cities, and I am very I have a soft spot for that style of architecture. So I think if you're trying to win me over to the dark side of Palm Springs, that's probably a really good way to do it.
Well, I have one more restaurant, and I was so excited to try this It was called Melisa, and it's at the Drift Hotel. And Tamara and I just stumbled onto it. We just were walking down the street, like, we should check this place out. It's really cool. They're channeling Baja, which I've never been to, so I can't really speak fluently about what Baja cuisine is. But by all means, Chef Isaac Ramirez is doing extremely cool things. The highlight is this dish, panella cheese with chili crisp, grilled broccolini, tangerine, and chili crisp. So that to me is a combination that I can just get behind. And it was like with like homemade flour tortillas, really perfect tortillas. He does a grilled maitake mushroom with a white barbecue sauce and salsa macha. I love modern Mexican cuisine. I love when there's some of the foundational agriculture and elements are woven in with a chef's touch. And I think Isaac is doing incredible work there. And I can't get enough salsa matcha on my tacos. I love that.
Yeah, I love salsa matcha, and I feel like a through line in a lot of these places you're talking about is that they kind of are building a fantasy for people, which I think is what Palm Springs is in a lot of ways. So I love that you had so much fun there, and I will consider making a stop on my next time out to Joshua Tree.
So did I sell you on it a little bit then?
Yeah, I'm not a caviar girly, but the rest sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think your next trip, you're going to be surprised by some of the restaurants. And we didn't even talk about Billy Reed's, which I talked about in the last episode. But that Billy Reed's, get the key lime pie, enough said.
Sold.
This is Taste is hosted by Eliza Abarbanel and me, Matt Rodbar. The show is produced by Shalia Harris and Pat Stango and edited by Clayton Gumbert. Theme music by Steve Rydell. Visit Taste online at tastecooking.com and make sure to subscribe to our newsletter for updates on all cool things that are happening.